Morning. We're speaking with Michael Williamson of Cascadia Seaweed, based in British Columbia. Morning, Michael.
Morning, Mark.
So this is interesting. So we have some categories when we're looking at guests for our podcast here, and we generally categorize them into people in the farming business and people in the equipment business. So you came across my desk as someone in the farming business. So tell me, Michael, are you a farmer?
Yes, indeed, we're a farmer, but Cascadia Seaweed is farming of a little bit of a difference. We build farms in the ocean, we plant seaweed, we grow seaweed, we then harvest it and process it into liquid kelp extract and biostimulants to support land farmers. So we like to say it's sustainable aquaculture supporting regenerative agriculture.
So the place where you're farming is actually in the sea, and the sea actually makes up more of this great earth of ours than any land mass. So tell us about what farming in the sea is all about.
Well, you're absolutely correct, Mark. The world is about 70% covered by ocean, yet we only extract about 2% of our protein out of it. So the oceans provide a wonderful opportunity. We farm off the coast of British Columbia, Vancouver Island, from the southern tip, which is just north of Seattle, all the way up to the British Columbia, Alaska border. And this year, we're also going to be purchasing some seaweed products from Alaskan ocean farmers as well. We have about 25 hectares or slightly over 55 acres of farms in 5 locations in the ocean, as I mentioned, from tip to tip of British Columbia. We gather seed for our planting in the fall, which is the natural cycle for seaweed. Plant it before December, leave it in the ocean. It grows at about 2 to 3 meters deep or about 6 to 9 feet deep throughout December, January, February, March, April. Mother Nature does all the work with nutrition, nutrients in the ocean, plus sunlight. And in the spring, we have a bountiful harvest.
Some interesting dichotomy I see between what I think of as traditional farming and what you do is that, and oftentimes in row crop farming, they're competing for water resources, which are getting more and more scarce around the planet. And here, your product is right in the water, and interestingly, not only water but salt water.
Yeah, well, we compete for space as well. The ocean is a somewhat busy place, particularly with could be industrial traffic or ferries or tankers or log booms or communities using it for other kinds of fishing. So, although there's a lot of ocean, it's quite a rigorous process, somewhere between 1 to 3 years in most jurisdictions. For example, Alaska, British Columbia, California, Maine, all of these jurisdictions go through a licensing process to ensure that the farms that are put in the ocean to grow seaweed meet environmental rules, meet regulations on respect to who owns the ocean or who has control over it, and that the structures that we build in the ocean aren't going to break up, they're not going to leave any kind of debris, and more importantly, they're not going to affect any kind of wildlife. So overall, growing seaweed in the ocean is a net positive benefit for the planet and for the oceans themselves. And then we turn it into a product that has net positive benefit as well. So it's a good example of circular economy.
As I'm researching this, and to be frank, seaweed's kind of a new product to me. I've certainly seen it as I travel around the world and spend a lot of time in the ocean, but you're making it into a more sellable commodity that's really important for the ag industry. Explain to us what seaweed is and maybe some of the different types.
So seaweed or algae or macroalgae comes in 3 broad classes known as reds, browns, and greens. There's about 11,000 species worldwide. Some like cold water, some like warm water. In British Columbia, we have 600 different species, and we're focusing on 2 species of brown seaweed called Macrocystis and Saccharina, otherwise known as large kelps or large brown seaweed. They're native to our areas. And one thing that's important on rules for growing seaweed in Maine, Alaska, British Columbia, for example, is that the seeds that you gather to plant your seaweed have to come from within 30 miles of your farm. So you're preserving the natural balance in any particular area. We don't bring in any invasive or non-native species in our farming. And this is common to ocean farming practices across and around North America.
So with the seaweed, there's a delineation between natural and cultivated seaweed. You're in the business of cultivated?
That is correct. Yeah, we refer to the natural as wild harvest, and then we do cultivated. So the folks that are making products from wild harvest get a license from a government or a jurisdiction and go out and they cut what Mother Nature provides. And it's done in a manner that generally, sustainably, season over season, it regrows. On the other hand, we can build farms of whatever size we want, plant the specific or particular species that we want, as long as it's native to that area, and then grow it. And this enables us to tailor grow it by varying by depths and time of planting and time of harvest, which can alter the chemical makeup of the seaweed a little bit depending on the products. And more importantly, it allows us to scale sustainability to meet rising demand for our products.
Michael, how's the term kelp used in the mix of these things?
So, folks sometimes ask what's the difference between kelp and seaweed? Think of seaweed as the broad class like trees. And within trees, you have coniferous and deciduous. You have some with needles, some with leaves. Those are all trees. In our instance, it's all seaweed. A more scientific word for seaweed is macroalgae. And within this seaweed and macroalgae is the reds, browns, and greens. And kelps are a subset of the brown seaweed. And that's what we're doing is kelp.
With the kelp, is there more nutrients in it? Is there some distinction on how it's different from that standpoint?
Sure. Every color and species of seaweed has different properties. Of course, there's some common properties and some common molecular and compound makeup across it. But with 11,000 species, there's going to be some that are higher in fucoidans, or ones that are higher in carbon, or ones that are higher in amino acids, or ones that are higher in other elements. Fortunately, the ones that are native to British Columbia that are both cultivatable. Not all seaweeds can be cultivated by man. Mother Nature's done some pretty complex things in the mating cycle and reproductive cycle of seaweed, and some of them are very hard to duplicate. But the ones that we duplicate, sugar kelp and giant kelp, I referred to them by scientific names earlier. Sugar kelp and giant kelp have amazing properties when turned into liquid kelp extract and biostimulant, which are products we sell into the ag industry.
Well, let's talk about those products. And basically, these are the two products you just referenced.
Right. So our main product in the market is biostimulants or liquid kelp extract. In North America, the biostimulant industry is worth about $1 billion annually. And of that $1 billion annually in North America, $300 million is seaweed products or products that contain seaweed in it. So it's $300 million growing at about 15% a year. What a seaweed biostimulant does for large row crop growers and broadacre and specialty crops, they have several common properties that are advantageous to farmers. They improve nutrient uptake efficiency, which means whatever fertilizer or nutrients the farmer uses as part of his regular program, the seaweed will improve the yield by up to 20%. And another very important factor is resilience to abiotic stress. So if crops are under pressure from drought, or if crops are under pressure from salinity in the irrigation water, seaweed biostimulants have been proven to help farmers grow more with less inputs.
As you speak about the large market that's available for this, do you see the market as growing or changing?
Yep, the market's absolutely growing. Overall, biostimulants globally are about 3 billion a year. As I mentioned, about 1 billion of that in the US. The whole sector is growing at 12 to 15% a year. And the fastest growing subsection of that is those with seaweed derived products. A lot of farmers, manufacturers, distributors, large ag companies are looking for more biological solutions to grow more crops. We're all looking for food security. The challenge is if you use too much nutrients or too much synthetic chemicals in growing your crops, there could be damage downstream, excess nutrient runoff. The plants aren't using the nutrients available as efficiently as they could. Farmers that are adopting the practice of using biostimulants, particularly seaweed-derived biostimulants, are able to get that increase in yield without the need for more synthetic fertilizer. And seaweed biostimulants, as part of regenerative agriculture, it also rehabilitates the soil. And healthy soil draws down more carbon and also facilitates a better transfer of nutrients in the soil into the plant's roots and then into the plants. Seaweed biostimulants are applied in furrow and also most commonly as foliar spray throughout the growing season.
So is there any sort of safety discussion or safety concern around this type of product?
Safety, quality, and certification is paramount. Each of the jurisdictions in which we sell, in the US, it's state by state. In Canada, it's national, and overseas, it's generally national. The federal governments in all of these jurisdictions, either the FDA or a Department of Agriculture, in Canada, it's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, regulates and licenses the production and application of biostimulants into crops. So we sell quite a lot in California. We had to go to the California Department of Food and Agriculture, get our product tested and certified, and the label will contain exactly what's in it and how it is to be used. And this is common across all the states. We're certified in about 10 states in the US, and we're increasing our certification. We're about to be certified in Canada. We do some export to Asia and the Mideast. And in all of those occasions, the local jurisdictions ensures that the products sold to farmers meets the required regulations and standards to keep it safe. And then there's also the subcategory, of course, of organic. We have organic products as well, and the folks that are supporting and producing organic farm products can get an organic version of seaweed biostimulants as well.
I understand that there's also another part of your business where you're really using the overall knowledge that you've had in developing this business model and the science behind it to help other growers start to produce seaweed as well.
Sure. So there's two main aspects to Cascadia Seaweed. The first is agriculture products. Number one is the biostimulants that we just talked about. And the second one is bovine feed supplements. So when you make a seaweed biostimulant, there's also a solid byproduct, which we dry and flake, and that can be used as a mineral supplement for large farm animals. And we're doing research to show that a 2% inclusion in a cow's diet can perhaps reduce the amount of methane from burps or increase the feed conversion efficiency of cows. We've done some small scale trials, and this summer we're going to be going into larger scale trials to be amongst the seaweed products that help reduce methane from cows. The other whole sideline that we do is called nature-based solutions, and this is the consulting arm of Cascadia Seaweed. Because we're very good at growing seaweed in the ocean and building farms and deciding where the best area in the ocean for a farm is and converting it to value add practices, we do this on a consulting basis as well for, as you said, others that want to get in the industry, but also in the global south. We have a project in Kenya working with local Kenyan seaweed farmers who are mostly women to help them increase their yield in their communities and then perhaps transforming their seaweed crops into local biostimulant to help local farmers in Kenya expand their knowledge. And this kind of work's being done also in Namibia and Tanzania and other countries around the globe, where seaweed is recognized not only as a mainstream crop amendment in North America, but as a lifeline for many countries in the global south to help increase their own food security.
So you speak about a demand in that area. Let's take a different path. Is there an area of the world that you see that is excelling in this area of farming of the sea?
Sure. Korea, Japan, China have grown seaweed in the oceans for literally hundreds of years. Korea is probably one of the foremost. Indonesia. So all the warm water countries in the East Asia are growing a tremendous amount of seaweed. But that's also because it's a very important part of their diet. They take the seaweed out of the ocean, different species in some cases from which we grow, and either with very little processing or more processing, it's a major component of their diet. Of course, everyone in North America knows sushi, and the outer wrap of sushi is seaweed. In North America, seaweed is not a mainstay of our diet. Either the umami flavor of it or other aspects mean that we don't eat a lot of seaweed in North America, so there's not a big product for it. That being said, in the Asia, again, countries like China that grow a lot of seaweed do some industrial processing and convert seaweed into a product that's inside products in North America, like agar-agar and thickener for some of our foods and ice cream. Seaweed and seaweed-derived products is at a low-level input into a lot of our products, but as a whole food or something you recognize as seaweed, it's certainly not as big in North America as it is in Asia.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from, how you got into this business, and tell us about beautiful British Columbia.
Well, I actually was born and raised and grew up on the east coast of Canada, but on the coast. And my two business partners, when we started the company back in 2019, both had long and illustrious marine careers themselves. I was in the Canadian Navy for 30 years. My business partners, Bill and Tony, had spent most of their career working on or around the ocean. 6 years ago, we were looking for a new project, and British Columbia has a long and proud history of aquaculture, both with salmon and other fin fish, and a lot of shellfish farming. So when we brought the idea to local communities and said we'd like to start growing seaweed in the ocean, of course, initially there was a bit of surprise or confusion about what seaweed farming was all about. And then fast forward to today, 7 years later, everybody wants to be a seaweed farmer. There's lots of courses on it. Europe is expanding its seaweed cultivation. Both coasts of Canada expanding seaweed cultivation. East coast of the US mainly expanding seaweed cultivation. And we've always talked about coasts and the oceans in this discussion, and it's because macroalgae or kelp or large seaweed wants to be growing in the right conditions in salt water. It's not a freshwater algae. I was going to say freshwater plant, and although it does use photosynthesis like any plant, it's not in the plant family. The other type of algae, which
That's a
can be,
useful distinction
yeah,
today, because
yeah,
I think a lot of people that, like myself, that are not familiar with this would just simply consider it a plant.
it looks like a plant. It's got a root structure and it's got sort of a stem and it's got leaves, but all of those different parts of algae have a very different function than similar parts in plants. So we always call it an algae or a seaweed.
With the knowledge and talents that you have in this space, you guys are at the right place at the right time. Tell us about some visions of how you plan to expand in the near future.
So expansion is all about meeting the demand as more and more farmers adopt the use of seaweed biostimulants for more crop security. We grew 100 tons last year and turned it into about 600,000 liters, which is about 150,000 gallons of product. And we've sold out this year, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. This year, we have 600 tons, or 6 times the amount of seaweed growing in the ocean. And we'll be harvesting it in late April and early May. And we'll be selling that and hopefully selling out. And concurrently, we're expanding our farm footprint. This year is about 25 hectares. We're going to add another 10 hectares and then continue to add 10 to 20 hectares each year to meet the demand. And as well, Alaska is a really good region for growing seaweed. So we're partnering with Alaskan seaweed farmers and putting purchase orders in to buy some of the same species and quality of seaweed as they're growing. And there's quite a lead time on this when you think about it. So for procuring or buying seaweed for spring of 2026, we have to start to let the Alaskan farmers and ourselves know now so they can plan farm infrastructure, they can plan gathering the seed or the sorus of the new material in the fall, putting it in a nursery, getting the seed lines ready, planting it out in November, and then harvesting it in April and May and June of next year. So it's really a long process, but it's the same thing with farmers. If you think about land farmers planting their seeds in April, May, June, March, depending on where they live, waiting a whole season, going through all the weather and all the changing in moisture, and then harvesting in the fall. We're the back cycle, but we're subject to the same concerns and stresses and challenges as land farmers, which gives us a bit of a natural affinity with our customers when we sell them biostimulants and seaweed-derived liquid kelp extracts.
Sure, they'll certainly understand some of these challenges and the hard work and planning that goes into that process. Mike, how do people contact you or your team if they'd like to find out more about your company?
Our website is cascadiaseaweed.com. Locally, we have agents on the ground in California, Oregon, Washington. We're expanding our reach. We're working through a distributor in Wisconsin that does blending and formulating products for farmers in 15 states around him. We'll soon be bringing on sales agents and representatives on the East Coast of the US. In Canada, when we're certified, we'll do the same thing, mainly in the West. And fortunately, we have quite a lot of inbound interest from overseas, which is a new market that we're looking to. And of course, adopting certification to the local registration authorities. So things are going reasonably well, but like every farmer that knows or is listening to your show, it depends on the season, it depends on commodity prices. And the commodity pricing one is interesting because we sell to almonds, for example, and lemon farmers and pepper farmers and date farmers. We do broad acre crops like soy and canola and corn. And when the broad acre prices are down or the almond prices are down, our customers feel pressure, which means that we'll feel pressure. So it's really a good closed organization. We like to say we're farmers supporting farmers. We feel their pain, and we like to try and help them improve their yields as well in a very cost-effective manner.
The growers across the spectrums that you've just mentioned, can appreciate as you're developing and tweaking and providing different ways to deliver your product to these farmers. I think you can create stronger relationships with them overall.
Absolutely. And we visit California a lot. We sell our seaweed in 1,000-liter totes or 235-gallon, the big totes. And it's pretty satisfying when you're on a 5,000-acre farm with some growers and their crops doing well. And they drive by their fertilizer compound and you go, stop, stop. And inside that fertilizer compound is cases or totes of our product from British Columbia being used. And it's a really interesting validation when you realize that it started with a little gametophyte, which is a little seaweed baby, all the way up to a full plant through green processing into a green product and then into totes to help farmers regeneratively. And one thing I'd also like to add, all of our farms in British Columbia are in the territories of coastal First Nations. We have 5 First Nations partners, again, from the southern tip of British Columbia up to the northern tip. And we work in these communities, and members of these communities are on the water with us, helping us with harvest or processing as much or as little as they want. But it's a really good blend of communities and nations working together to take advantage of what British Columbia has to offer at a very competitive price and a very competitive quality of product into farmers in North America, both Canada and the US.
I see that as an amazing part of Cascadia Seaweed is that you do partner with these different groups and that you're really providing some of the processing and marketing and distribution arm for them.
Absolutely. And it's also important to note that we can't forget any part of the ecosystem. When seaweed grows in the ocean, it uptakes excess nutrients, it sequesters carbon, it oxygenates the water, and it provides habitat for other species like salmon and sea lions and things like that. So it's a really solid cycle of sustainability and supporting regenerative agriculture. And that's why people like what we're doing. We have a great team of folks that work with us. We have about 20 folks on staff, and everybody's pulling in the same direction. And it's all it's not all positive, obviously, but as much as we can do, we do it on a low impact, and we do it so that we can do it year after year. And when we've gone back to areas after 3 or 4 years where we've put farms in, we have noticeable changes in the area around the farm. There's more natural seaweed. There's more natural fish and birds and wildlife. So it really works as it's supposed to do. And on the farms, farmers are seeing an increase in yield. We did a trial with soybeans, and a particular acre went from 69 to 83 bushels with the application of seaweed. And concurrently, it was applied with herbicide and showed less herbicide burn because it was being carried to the plant with a seaweed base. So we're quite happy and proud with what we're achieving, and we're looking to expand as more and more customers learn about our products and we get out there and expand it in the farmer's workplace.
Well, Michael, thank you for educating us more on this. Seems like a great company with some great growth prospects around the world here. We're hoping that some people will learn about your company and contact you in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. CascadiaSeaweed.com, and you can learn all about the story and where to get products in your local area.